The doors to Panic to Peace are officially open. This is my signature 10-week program where I walk you through step by step how to build a healthy relationship with anxiety so you can say goodbye to the constant worry, panic, and fear, and finally start living with lots more peace, joy, and freedom. You'll learn from someone who actually gets it because I've been where you are and I know what it takes to truly recover. You can take the program live with me and others who are on a similar journey or take it on your own pace with the self paced version. Spots are limited, and once doors close, they won't reopen until 2026. So if you're finally ready to reclaim your life from anxiety, head to the link in the show notes, and I'll see and support you inside of Panic to Peace. I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Okay, I have another wonderful guest with me, and I'm really excited to chat about this topic. This is something that I talk about often with clients and students, but it's not really something that I brought to the podcast. So I'm really excited to have Courtney Kramer here with me. She's an IFS and somatic therapist and does a lot of parts work and body work. And I'm just really excited because I think the topic that we picked aligns well with the work that she does. So, Courtney, welcome to Healthy Push Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is really cool. I always love when people do IFS work because I started delving in 4 or 5 years ago and loved it. And I'm just like, ooh, it's so good. And the somatic work too, like those two things. Ooh, such good stuff.
So incredibly life-changing.
Yeah.
Unless you really are in it, you don't even know how much it can impact you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's just start. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a therapist. I just moved to Arizona, so I'm kind of in this era of, like, learning a little bit about myself in a completely different state and, like, different part of the world.
Where'd you move from?
Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So, completely different coast, completely different weather, different sort of energy. So, it's been really fun. My whole family's out here. That has been really beautiful to just sort of learn a little bit more about myself in this, stage of my life and be closer to my nephew who was just born about 9 months ago. And kind of building my therapy practice has just been really cool to sort of network and meet a bunch of different practitioners of, like, all different fields in the holistic health. That has been really exciting. More about myself, I'm a dog owner. I'm sure you might see my standard profile, on my Instagram. Somebody who's just really kinda learned from my own journey of being so in my head and such an intellectualizer and spent so many years so just disconnected and not knowing who I was and kind of in a place of always being hyper vigilant of other people and their needs and just how to kind of help everyone but me. And just over the past couple of years, just taking so many chances and risks, whether that's moving or just starting my own practice or saying yes to things that I would never say yes to because it might impact somebody else. And then learning from all that to then kinda incorporate that as who I am as a therapist to sort of help other people take risks and learn about who they are and build that relationship with their body so that way they can kinda say that full no instead of saying yes. So that's like a little tidbit about me.
Isn't it like the funnest work when you take a look inward and you're like, "Oh, shit." There's a lot of stuff here and a lot of disconnect, and I think that's something that I've also been through recently and I'm still very much going through, so I am so excited to talk about this. So, we're going to talk about like the non sexy, maybe like more simple, basic stuff that really helps you to get more connected to your mind and body and to feel more safety and to be able to help you in times of need. And I think I say this all the time. I'm sure you do too. Like, it's so incredibly powerful, the simple and basic stuff, but we often overlook it because we're like, "Oh, no, it's gotta be something," right? Like, shiny, big, like, sexy, and it's like, "No, no, no, no." It's not always that. So I think we hear so much about, like, the flashy, maybe, like, quick fixes, like, the bigger things, but you and I both know, like, a lot of the healing comes from the smaller, basic stuff. So, let's just start with, like, I guess, what does real healing look like for you, like, in your opinion?
I feel like real healing truly is building that relationship with yourself. And that can really look like those slow, sustainable moments of reconnection. I think if you kind of look at it with 2 different people, I mean, you're not gonna really build a sustainable, solid relationship if you're just focusing on, like, grand gestures and grand date nights and, like, going on travel trips together and these, like, big explosive moments of, like, connection. You're gonna burn out on that, and, like, are you really getting to know that person, or are you just kind of having fun? So
Yeah.
I feel like with healing, it's yeah, I mean, you can go to these big not saying that these things aren't a beautiful part of healing, but, I think these big kind of shiny retreats or things that are, like you're like, "Oh, this long weekend intensive thing is gonna be the key to me healing." And it's like, that's a great additive, but it's what are we doing on the day-to-day kind of every moment with yourself? So I feel like that healing is just sort of taking those slow, mundane, repetitive, kind of boring, tools and opportunities, and, like, making that an everyday commitment, and that's healing, is showing up for yourself even when it's not fun or sexy.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love, love how you said it's building a relationship with you. And that looking back on my journey with anxiety, panic, that was probably the biggest piece. I don't think I really even saw it or acknowledged like that's what I was doing. But being able to look back now, I'm like, holy, like I was obviously working to build a very different, more healthy relationship with my emotions, but that can't happen unless you're building that healthy relationship with you. So that I say this all the time. It's like it's about building a healthy relationship with your emotions, but also with yourself. But with these like quick fixes, right? I think there's so many, especially for my community. Like you're really struggling with anxiety, panic, intrusive thoughts, like avoidance, all this stuff. And you're looking around, and I feel like you're constantly being sold on this idea of like, just do this, just do that. Like,
Yep.
it's so simple. And we are really drawn to these things. Like, why do you think we're so drawn to these quick fixes?
'Cause life is uncomfortable, right? Like, those feelings of panic and anxiety are so uncomfortable, and the desire to wanna soothe is so strong, and it's so valid, right? I mean, anything that's kinda promising you, like, relief immediately.
Give it to me.
Yeah, sign me up, like, I don't wanna feel awful,
I don't want to feel.
period. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because so many things in life, it's effortful, and when you are exhausted already and kinda, like, tired from managing the discomfort for so long, that quick fix feels so important and so powerful. It's kinda like taking Advil or something for, a reoccurring headache. Like, it feels good a little bit in that moment, but we're really not getting to the root of it. It's one of those things where it's kind of like that hard truth that I tend to deliver to a lot of my clients is like, I hear that you're exhausted, and I know you're tired, and this has been such a struggle and a battle with, like, being with this essence of discomfort, and part of, like, the first layer of healing is accepting that it's not going to be a quick fix is, like, the answer, right? And grieving that you're going to have to continue doing hard work, but it's gonna be a completely different way of doing hard work. It can be gentle, it could be soft, and it can be, like, a slow, like, return to yourself versus, like, this effort of fighting yourself. It's like, I think it's it's really tiring when you're feeling so anxious and so panicky, and your whole goal is, "How can I get away from this as quick as possible?" Versus this other work that says, "Okay, how can I sit with this and not, like, let it take over the room, right, and let it take over your body, but sitting with it with a little bit of distance, and really getting clarity on what even am I fighting, right? Like, am I fighting this anxiety, but maybe I don't have the right tools because I don't even know what this anxiety is or what it's trying to say or why it's here. I think people are tired. In my like therapy work, I don't want to continue to put people in a position to keep being tired, but it is sort of like we think that that quick fix will help alleviate that exhaustion when I have another option here for you, which is like, let's just slow it down and stop fighting and see what happens, which can be scary and kind of an unknown if you've been doing one thing for your whole life when it comes to that discomfort.
Yeah, for sure. And what you said about it feeling so important, that like hit me. And I'm sure it hit others listening that like it really does. It feels like I've got to fix this and I've got to fix it now. And I think that's such the appeal, right? Too, of you don't wanna be with the discomfort, and you do want that fix now, and that's often why we get so distracted with all this stuff that really is like taking Tylenol, like, I'll keep doing this and it's fine, the headaches suck, but so, I love how I often use these examples, and some of my students are like, "Okay, here Shannon goes." So, I think what you're saying, right, is like how can we do things differently? And that is really hard because when you have been fighting and trying to get rid of for so long, it's like a pattern and like a habit you get stuck in. And it is so freaking hard to break those. So I think I want to talk about observation because I think this is one of the things that like gets overlooked and can be incredibly helpful and powerful. So can you talk about like this just noticing, observation, like, why is that such an important piece of healing?
Yes. It's one of my favorite tools, like, personally to use.
Yep, same.
Because I think we forget that our nervous system is actually wired to judge. What that is kind of what anxiety is like, I've got to determine if this thing is going to hurt me or it's going to help me or it's not going to do anything. And so we are humans who are just like by nature, we're judging things and that, we don't have to judge that we judge. We just have to recognize that we do. And so observing actually is something that is a skill that you honestly have to like kind of work out and practice. And observation sort of gives you that opportunity to make different choices or have a relationship versus a controlling relationship. It's so powerful because it is really difficult, but it does make that sustainable shift of change. And I think judgment pushes us towards trying to control our feelings and our anxiety. And then observation gives us an opportunity to connect to it and kind of figure out, oh, as I'm observing this thing, do I want to move closer to it? Do I wanna actually, yeah, move away from it? Do I wanna get more curious and kind of figure out what this is and what it needs and what its real name is? Because sometimes I think
Yeah.
anxiety can kind of be a bit of like a umbrella term that kinda covers a lot of feelings or a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so to be able to sort of observe something, you can get a little bit more clear on what it is that you're really sitting with. And yeah, I mean, I have so many thoughts more on observation and like cool things that I kind of do in sessions with clients to have them practice and to encourage them to try it. And often it can be really impactful because they don't realize how quickly they go to a place of judgment and how hard it is to kind of reorient back to just simply observing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm sure, like, you see this all the time, just like I do. We're so quick to be judgy and harsh and critical. But that is just so much of the human experience and kind of how we're wired. And so I'm just so glad you said that because I think a lot of people are like, it's so hard for me. Why is it so hard for me? Like, why do I suck at this? And it's like, oh, we kind of all do. And that's okay. Can you give us an example of like how you practice this with clients? Like, what's a suggestion you give? Because people might be like, okay, observe. I think I kind of get the gist of it, but like practically, what does it look like?
One of my go-tos, and, I have to give credit where credit's due. I think in a training I did, it's on my website, like a mindfulness training, but it's kind of bringing in, like, a piece of food into the room or, like, a drink and incorporating kind of your senses in the beginning. So what that could look like is like, okay, so like I have my water bottle here, and that might be the thing that we're going to practice observing is this and the water inside, right? And so we start with, okay, just what is like, describe it. Like, what are you looking at? Right. And so it's interesting because I might say, okay, there's like yellow stripes on it, there's like a pink logo on it. Yellow is my favorite color. So it makes me really happy to look at it. I really like yellow. And instantly I'm like, okay, right. So here's a judgment that you just had of the color, right? You're already saying, and judgments can be compliments, can be positive, but regardless, we're judging it. So it's almost like okay, course correct. Let me pause there and just go back to looking at the color,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm like, okay, there's stripes, there's a straw in it. I really straws are just like so helpful, when I'm drinking and I really like straws. Boom, I'm already judging it. So it's just instant, like as we're just looking and describing something, sometimes we can kind of start to catch ourselves judging it. And so it's that practice time and time again to return back to just looking and describing. And then you can incorporate other senses, right? So you start to smell it. Maybe you start to actually take a sip of water and feel how it feels in your mouth. And again, all while just simply observing the senses and catching yourself when you judge it, right? I might drink the water and like, oh, I don't really like how warm it is. Instead of saying, okay, it's warm,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just this simple practice, just drinking water, right? That is teaching me how quick I might make a judgment versus just staying in a place of observation. And so you can observe the actual drink and the water, and you can kind of I call this like intermediate advanced, is like observing how your body responds to this thing that you're looking at. Right. So I'm looking at it and then I'm noticing that my heart expands, right? Because I do like the color yellow. So I am drawn towards it. But first and beginning level, it's just what do you see? The five senses, what are you seeing? What does it smell like? What does it feel like in your hands? What does it taste like?
Yeah.
It seems so simple, like such
Mhm.
a simple exercise, but how quickly people can kinda slip into a place of saying they like something or they don't like something, and then that instant moment of, "Oop, I just jumped right back into a place of judgment, and now I'm making meaning out of something, that is just a water bottle."
I think we often hear of these practices that are incredibly helpful, but I think we don't always understand the intention or like why we're doing it or how to do it in a way that's helpful. Because I think we often do hear of this practice as being like, okay, when you're feeling anxious. And I see that and I experience this as being incredibly unhelpful because I was like, okay, and now I'm going to force myself to observe. And and it was always when I was feeling anxious, when I was like on the verge of panic, and then I would be incredibly frustrated of like, why is this thing not helping? Why is it not quote working? So like what is your thought on that?
Totally. I think it's one of those things where, yeah, if the you almost have to pair it with a little bit of the observation of your external space. So, yeah, if I was observing if our anxiety is really uncomfortable, that could kind of be like observing something that my water bottle, I'm drawn towards it. It's expansive to me. It's gorgeous. But if I look over here at this, recycling thing that I need to take out, if I look at that, I'm gonna start to feel like, ugh, tense and a little bit like disgust, like, oh, I don't want to have to do that. I can't believe I haven't done it yet. Yeah, I'm not gonna wanna continue to observe that thing. And so same thing can be internally just with our external world. If that anxiety and that tension is just getting to be like, if I really take that lens of observation inward at that thing without having like a way out, that's gonna get really overwhelming. Now we're just looking at something that we don't enjoy looking at, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger, and now we're kind of in that spiral and that loop. So that observation tool doesn't necessarily have to be about the thing that's uncomfortable. That observation tool can actually say, "Ooh, this is getting really uncomfortable. I'm not running from it. I'm not avoiding it, but I am kinda gonna give myself a chance to find something that maybe feels like a little bit less intense, that when I look at that, it now can kind of bring in a different feeling or a feeling that can kind of support this feeling." So if internally I'm feeling, say, in my chest, it's really tense, it's really tight, I'm having a hard time breathing, but I don't know, maybe my hand doesn't feel like anything, like my hand almost feels a little loose and a little open, and I can kinda feel some air on my hand. I'm gonna observe my hand. That's gonna feel a lot better if I just look at the lines and, "Oh, I really like my nails. I just got painted it pink," and all of a sudden, I might notice that my chest starts to alleviate. So I think, yeah, when we think about observation, that piece that somewhat gets missed when we talk about it is if you don't like the thing you're looking at, right? If it is creating tension, observe something else, right? And bring in a little bit of that relief.
Yeah.
That's sort of that ability to decrease that intensity. And then you learn this new way of kind of, okay, now that maybe this tension is a little less intense, and I have this ability to look away, maybe I might start to like look at the recycling and be like, okay, is it that bad? It's just a box, right? But at first, when it's really intense, I wanna look away. When I feel a little bit more calm and a little bit more open, then I might be able to revisit that anxiety with a little bit of distance.
Yeah. And I'm sure you do this, right? Well, of course you do in session with clients where it's not like in the moment where you're experiencing a ton of anxiety or you're on the verge of panic. It like takes practice, right? Outside of those moments to be able to slow down and observe and really work on it because this is not something that like okay, now I'm feeling a shit ton of anxiety and I'm just gonna notice and I'm gonna like be able to work. And that's kind of what I thought, this is gonna work, right? Like I'm feeling really anxious. I'm gonna do this thing. And my brain was like, we have no practice outside of anxious moments trying to slow down and observe and not be so judgy. So why the heck would you think that we can do this when we're feeling anxious?
100%.
Yeah.
I always use this swimming analogy of, like, you don't practice swimming for the first time when you're in the deep end and drown.
Or like in a drowning moment.
Right? Like, go to the shallow end, practice just like, swimming in the water, getting
Yeah.
comfortable.
So I want to go back because you said something before, and I think this is a good connection point. Like, I want to figure out what its real name is in relation to your feelings. Because I think what you said is so true that, like, we kind of create this blanket statement of, like, it's anxiety. And, like, so often it's not anxiety. There sure, maybe there is some anxiety. Maybe there's a lot of other emotions going on or another that's really driving the discomfort. So, I think this is kind of a cool part to talk about the emotion wheel and, like, how important this really basic thing can be too, because I think we tend to, as humans, look at things like this and like, ugh, that's ridiculous. Like I'm panicking or I'm really struggling. There's no way that's going to be helpful. But it's like, oh my gosh, just being able to name what the heck is going on is so freaking helpful. So, can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that you're, like, lining this up really well just in terms of kind of how I work with clients, and when that feeling is so big, observation outside of your body can be so helpful just to decrease the intensity, and then when that intensity has decreased, bringing in that emotion wheel, right? Of, "Okay, now that I'm not like, my body isn't overloaded because 'cause I'm able to kinda look outside of myself and observe this thing that's kinda neutral or even nice to look at." now I can kinda come back and be like, "Okay, what really is happening here?" And I feel like, especially with my clients who tend to be in that intellectual space, they tend to sort of, I think, are like, "I feel," and it's either kinda like those basic feelings we learn when we're kids, and it's like, that really only happy, sad, mad really only encompasses
Yeah.
so much. Or it's like, I feel and it's a thought, right? Like, I feel like this shouldn't be happening, or I feel like this thing isn't, over here needs to change. And so I think that the emotion wheel is such an underestimated tool, like you were saying. It can be so helpful to sort of say, okay, yes, I'm feeling anxious, but what else is here? Because I might really just be anxious to feel the thing that's underneath
Mm.
what's happening. And I think that that is often like that the face that you just made, right? Of like, oh yeah, my clients will often be like, "Oh, wow," like, it's funny because I keep looking down, I have the emotion wheel as a I bring in for myself and for my clients, but I feel like there's so when you really can, like, sit down, you're like, "Am I anxious? Oh, wait, I'm actually feeling rejected from this thing that just happened," or I'm feeling just a little bit, like, shocked that this thing happened, or I'm actually feeling really, scared or really sad, or in despair or kind of powerless, right? And when you really start to name more of a feeling, that gives you that ability to then say, "What do I need in this moment?" When we're really anxious and we're just feeling all this anxiety, we're like, "Oh, I just need to not be feeling this."
Yep.
And when you are like, "Oh, I'm just sort of feeling insecure," right? That could be the feeling that's underneath it. And then that is like, "Oh, what I really need is just sort of like some reassurance or an affirmation that I'm doing okay." Or if it's that I'm feeling powerless, "Oh, okay, I think what I really need right now is just the ability to make a choice." And that changes everything because it's not just, "Oh, I'm feeling anxious, I need to calm down." It's, "No, I'm feeling powerless and I need autonomy." It just gives you more clarity as to what it is that you truly need in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It's so I love like for those you're listening, right? You can't see this, but Courtney has a pillow that's the emotion wheel and it has so many emotions in it and I think or on it. But yeah, it's like these really big overwhelming emotions like scared, powerless, embarrassed, like vulnerable, all like we often don't look at all that stuff, right? And that can be the emotions that are really generating the anxiety. And so it's so helpful when you don't just put that blanket statement on it. I love I love the basics. Like I get so excited about talking about it because it really is like when you simplify and you really allow yourself to connect with yourself and what you're feeling and you do it in a gentle way, it changes so much.
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about this might be something that people aren't really aware of or like what this even is. You talk about a sensation list. Like what is this and how can that be helpful too?
Totally. The sensation list is my go-to, my favorite, after observation, because I think that's something that I really had to, practice, like, building a vocabulary around, because I would just be like, "Ew, I just don't like what's happening in my chest." And my therapist would be like, "Well, what is happening?" I'm like, "I don't know,
Yeah.
like, I just don't like."
Yeah, when you would do any sort of parts work, I feel like when I started with a therapist and she was IFS trained and she would ask me this question, I'm like, just blank stare looking at her. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't feel any feelings. It's just there.
Yeah. You're like, "There's just something happening, and I don't like that." The sensationless, and I feel like this is just a vocabulary around different ways that your body can respond to a stimulus that isn't an emotion. It's more of like truly just like an internal reaction, right? And building that vocabulary to say, oh, I'm even feeling numb or I'm feeling tingly, I'm feeling tight, even recognizing, like, that's, like, those hunger cues even of, like, realizing that there's, fullness or there's, like, a longing or, like, a pulling, a dragging,
Mhm,
being able to notice those sensations can, once again, like, help decrease the level of pain and intensity because when you realize that maybe, "Oh, I'm not maybe this isn't anxiety, this is just hunger," or
mm,
oh, this sensation in my chest, it isn't actually like my lungs are stopping. It's just that there's like a sensation of heaviness or tightness and, oh, I can kinda notice the like, I have asthma, and I now notice the difference between, like, truly I need my inhaler versus I'm just feeling some sensation of tightness or tension from a place of stress because I've kind of really increased my vocabulary around sensations and have been able to notice them a lot more obviously
Yeah.
than beforehand. And again, it's if you don't have that vocabulary, it gets really hard to kind of ground yourself in what's happening. And it kind of can just take over and all of a sudden just become whatever it is that's happening. So yeah, sensations and emotions are both kind of similar impact of clarity, then therefore you can kind of figure out what you need. But if you don't have that vocabulary, you're just using these blanket words and feeling that like out of control or powerlessness if you don't have the tool to sort of really define.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I'm thinking back, to when I was really in it and struggling with anxiety and panic, and mine mostly everything revolved around my stomach and feeling nauseous and having pain and urgency and all that stuff. And I wish, right, I had known what I know now, because there were a lot of times just very normal sensations that were happening relating to digestion that I would just take it, run with it, and be like, "Oh, here we go. Like, I'm gonna feel anxious. I'm gonna panic." Like, all the things. So it's so like so much of this, right, is like slowing down and being able to notice. And it is such a practice because it's like a skill I know I didn't have. And like you're saying, you have to really learn this vocabulary because things are maybe way oversimplified when we're little, but being able to acknowledge this stuff is so helpful. Like, I'm curious. I would think that this would help to build some tolerance for uncomfortable feelings. Can you, yeah, like talk about? I think that's probably one of the ideas behind this. Like, can you speak on that? Because I think when people understand that, like, it is so much more helpful.
100%. And I love that example that you gave around like noticing the digestive things and realizing, oh, this is literally just my stomach maybe having like a response to
Yeah, like, I just ate, like, your stomach is, like, breaking down food, we don't need to panic about this.
which really ties in observation, sensation list, and the emotion wheel, right? Because if you can kind of recognize, okay, there's a sensation in my stomach, right? It's maybe gurgling, or there's like some bubbling, or it just feels like a little bit full. And then you observe that versus judge it, right? Because the judgment is, oh God, this is different, which means it must be bad, right? We then start to make meaning of it. And so if you can kind of take a step back from that judgment and simply just observe the sensations and even just observing that emotion, right? That kind of came in of fear around it. Instead of like taking that and running with it, you can be like, okay, I can sit a little bit with this. And if I need to escape, to have like a little bit of a break from the intensity of it, then I go observe something different that feels a little bit less intense, and kinda can pendulum swing from, "Okay, I'm gonna observe my water bottle that I really love, and that feels really good," back to my stomach, "Okay, it's less intense. I now know it's just digestive. It's just what my body's naturally doing," and absolutely, then you can kind of tolerate the discomfort of digesting food. You can kinda tolerate a little bit more when you know that you don't have to make meaning of it. You don't have to make a story about, "This is what it is, and now my whole life is gonna be over." You're just sort of observing and naming what is happening, and then therefore, it kinda goes away a little bit faster and quicker than you would really expect, instead of it lingering because you're panicking around what it means and how to get rid of it. You're just like, "It's here, and I can breathe through it. I can look at something else if I need to and then come back to it," and again,
Yeah.
naming it is so underestimated, and then it's something that I think you have to just practice on your own to really feel the powerfulness of it.
Yeah, I love how you're saying, like, give yourself that grace of stepping away from it if it feels too overwhelming, because I think oftentimes when you hear that, "Just sit with it," that can feel really like you're not capable, right? Like you're doing it wrong, or just that you don't have the ability. And it's like, no, 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 we're human. Like, you can't always just stay with a feeling and force yourself through it. And I know this is what I initially did when I was doing this work. And I got so frustrated because it's like now I'm feeling even more. And it makes sense now, but I couldn't see it then of like, okay, you can shift your focus, right? We don't need to stay with these feelings that feel so freaking overwhelming.
100%. I like to think about it in terms of if here's with my examples and metaphors, like, with, like, working out, sometimes I think people are always like, "Okay, start with your heavier weight and see if you can get through the reps with that heavier weight," right? To build that strength.
Yeah.
And then you realize, okay, so say, my heavy weight might be like 15 pounds, As I'm doing it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is too heavy, right? This is too much. I'm gonna burn out. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm not gonna be able to work out if I sit with this 15-pound weight." And if I'm judging it and I'm creating anxiety, right, and being, "Oh, I'm so weak. I can't believe I can't do this." That's not gonna get me to work out more and build that tool. So instead it's saying, "Okay, 15 pounds is too much for me right now. Let me drop down to 10 or even 5," right? And slow down this process to say, it's okay to be with my feelings when they're a little bit less intense and practice being with it when it's just kind of more on the surface or just a little bit smaller. And so it's putting down that weight. And it's not that you're, again, avoiding it. You're really just giving yourself that grace and compassion to know, hey, this is too much. I'm not going to be able to tolerate that level. I need to slow it down and tolerate just a little bit less in the beginning. And that's just knowing your capacity. And I think that that's a brilliant, graceful thing to give yourself in that relationship to yourself.
Oh, so good. So I want to talk about one more thing that I know is helpful, and this definitely isn't talked about enough. So can you explain what interoception is and how it can be helpful, especially relating to anxiety and panic?
Yes. Interoception, I feel like, yeah, is kind of that overarching word that kind of encompasses that felt sense experience of being able to say, okay, I can notice my physical body responses, those sensations, and I can kind of notice those emotions. I think when we're feeling really anxious and we're in that place of heightened panic, your nervous system is sort of turning off that interoception ability. Like you're just feeling, extreme intense fear,
Hmm.
or you're kind of in that like threat of, I don't have time to sit down and name my feelings. I just need to get the hell out of Dodge. Like
Yep.
Brett is here, let me go. So in somatic work, there's the kind of this idea of orienting out or kinda building that resource to grounding or kind of supporting a little bit more of this safety finding and safety feeling, that comfort and connection. And so with interoception, it is such a great tool to be able to know sometimes our bodies are really sensitive and we almost feel too much. We can notice way too much and that can create panic. Or we're like so disconnected and numb that that creates panic because I'm like, I don't know. I don't have the answer and I feel like I need to. So I think building that ability to go to a place of safety and groundedness every once in a while can really help decrease if it's too much all at once or decrease any panic that comes from not feeling anything because you're kind of just going to noticing the things outside of your body first. Okay, I'm noticing my feet on the ground. I'm noticing my back against this chair. I'm noticing the colors in my room. If you can practice that sort of outside observation and orienting, then that skill can become a little bit more easy on the inside. It's a little bit less intimidating to sort of say, okay, if I can notice the yellow water bottle on the white walls and the feet on the ground, I might be able to use my emotion wheel and my sensations list to just wing it and practice kind of naming what's going on inside. But again, and then if you can kinda name what's going on inside, then you have that ability to say, "Hey, it's too much, I need to come back out." Or it's like, "Oh, look at that." Like, where I thought I didn't know anything, I do know a little bit, and that's really cool, and that can kind of give me a little bit more power. And I think with anxiety, it's this tendency to feel very powerless and to
Hmm.
feel like, that threat is so big and so harmful, and you don't have that ability. You kinda Anxiety makes you believe that you're just not capable, or that you have to be capable right now. And I think when you can kind of slow that down and create a little bit more safety in the body, it gives that anxiety we're kinda just, like, hearing the anxiety, but we're not letting it take over and make choices. We get to sort of work with it and find autonomy again and find that power to say, "Thank you so much for letting me know that things seem scary. I've got this." And so it also kinda creates confidence, and that true belief of, "No, I can feel that I have those sensations now of confidence, not just the sensations of fear, because I've worked on really getting to know not only the discomfort in my body, but also the comfort that exists in my body, because both of them exist. We forget that when
Yeah.
we're feeling anxious all the time.
1,000%, and our brains are really good at reminding us of, like, all the instances in which it hasn't felt safe. And I think, you do, it's so true, I just wanna validate this, like, you feel really in these anxious moments, especially the panic moments that, like, your mind and body are working against you, and I think it does truly feel like you're so unsafe, but I think looking back now, like, so much of what I was experiencing was such a disconnect from my body, because I was just like, "No, no, 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 no. I can't feel this. I can't handle this. I can't."
Yeah.
And all of that sort of self-talk, that dialogue, right? That's putting meaning to things. Like, I was so good at that of like, "I can't handle this. Like, see, this is happening again. Like, you're just always gonna be like this." And it was so far from the truth. But I think this is why it's so important that we have more of these conversations, and I love that somatic work is much more talked about now because this connection to your body is so important, and I know it can be really scary initially because you have these patterns, right, of doing the opposite, and it can feel really uncomfortable. So if somebody's like, okay, all this sounds great and fine, Courtney, but, like, also really terrifying. Like, I what do you mean letting myself feel and practicing, like, just even noticing, right? Like, that can feel scary and can feel risky. So it's like, what would you say to somebody who's like, "Oh god, like, am I gonna be okay? Like, can I do this?"
I think what I tend to say is slow and steady. That is what is coming up, right? That initial fear of even starting, then that is what we start with, right?
Mm,
I think the analogy I really like and that you kinda just touched on, right, is, oh my gosh, my anxiety is so loud and here it comes again and here's the voice of that and I really can't look at that. Like, I like to think about that as just all of our feelings and sensations just kinda coming up to the surface all at once, trying to get attention,
yep.
and we have that power to say, "Okay, I'm gonna put this in a container. I'm gonna put it in a little bit of, like, their own room, and I'm gonna be able to take that moment to kinda separate myself from all of that loud energy and just take a minute and see what does it feel like in this moment to be able to take that step away, put them in a room, and if it feels scary to open the door, we don't even have to do that. We can just kind of like ground ourselves in this moment to say, I can choose how quickly I go and open that door. I can choose, what feeling I want to come out at once and be with that. And I get to choose how long I want to be with that. At any point, I can wave the white flag and be like, I'm done. I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. And we don't have to keep doing it. That's the beauty of it is that
Yeah.
there's more choice and control and autonomy than I think people realize that they have, especially if they're working with somebody who's, like, safe and knows pacing and knows that ability to say, "We don't have to go to the deep end right away." Like, we can just sit on the edge of the pool if that's what you wanna do right now. It's just we could spend several sessions talking about how scary it is to try something new and be in that and building up that courage to go and do it. And so pacing is really important, and for anybody who feels scared to do it, that's so valid and that's so real, and let's just observe that fear, right? Like, let's just start there.
Yeah, that's so good because I think there's so much forcing that people do, and I know I did it, and that forcing, right, creates even more of this distrust, more lack of safety, more disconnect, and you just feel like you're on this hamster wheel of like, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit," and I can't get off. So I love that, like, starting small. So with all of this, like the non-sexy, maybe more simple, basic stuff and this body-based work, like what do you wish more people understood about like the slowness of it and connecting to your body, like how it can be so incredibly life-changing?
I think I wish more people realized how boring it is. In my personal opinion, I think if you are doing healing right, you're going to be bored, because a lot of it really is so repetitive and so mundane, and you are pulling out the emotion wheel and feeling silly for doing it. You are Googling the sensation list and, like, reading it off, right? You are practicing with every meal or every walk or every chore, just simply observing the experience, and you're like, "Oh my god, how many times can I observe the same shirt I'm folding or the same dirty dish I'm cleaning?" Right? But it's really all of a sudden you're going to realize that these things just become second nature, and you're going to realize how safe you start to feel in your own body because that judgment just starts like not having so much intensity, how much control you're having because all of a sudden you're so quick to be able to pull that emotion out without even pulling up the wheel, right? And all of a sudden that boring doesn't really feel that boring. It actually feels really peaceful and calm because you're actually super grounded and almost like enjoying the things that maybe once were, rushed through. So I think I just wish more people, if you're bored, you're probably doing it right. Like if you feel like this is like not doing much, then you're probably doing it exactly right. So yeah, I think I wish more people realize that that's part of that process and that that is actually what's going to create like safety in your body is when you give it an opportunity to just sort of be actually present, and being actually present can sometimes be boring.
No, so good. I love that. Well, Courtney, if people want to find and connect with you, because I know they will, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram. It's Renaissance Healing underscore. And then I also have a website, renaissancehealingpllc.com.
I love that. Well, thank you. This has been such a helpful, just fun conversation.
Thank you.
I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.